Thank you so much for joining us today. I have the pleasure of welcoming you to yet another conversation in Georgia State University Cyber webinar series, which has started in April 2020. And we have covered since then over 100 or so webinars, topics in teaching international business, practice of international business, conversations with business executives, and also research topics that are of interest to faculty and doctoral students in international business. This webinar series is sponsored by 9 other cybers. Georgia State Cyber is the organizer and the host organization. We have a consortium called MSI Consortium that has providing this service to international business educators and practitioners on behalf of 9 other centers of excellence in international business education and research designated by the U.S. Department of Education. Those of you who are familiar with our webinar series know already that these sessions are recorded and made available later. They're uploaded on our website, Georgia State University Cyber website, as well as our YouTube channel. So please share the link with your colleagues who may have not had the opportunity to be here live with us today. You also know, if you're a past participant, participants are muted, but will be able to see them. And they are very much encouraged. I urge our participants to post their comments and questions for our panelists, for our speakers, using the Q&A function. So that is very much appreciated. And also for everyone who joined us today, when we conclude this particular conversation, you will receive an email with a very brief survey, several questions, 5 questions. Please respond to those, where we are seeking, eliciting your feedback and suggestions for future webinar topics and speakers. So with that, let me just get started. We have a very special session today and distinguished colleagues joining me today. And a topic of interest and topic that we have not covered in recent webinars that relates to ASEAN, Southeast Asian nations, and also the big power in East Asia, there, China. So in view of the so-called China decoupling, we will be discussing the role of other nations in Southeast Asia. And before I engage in the conversation and ask my colleagues to ask one of my colleagues to introduce our speakers, let me make some initial remarks. What we find today is that the world economy has never been as integrated as we have now. So globalization is still robust. It's still very much in place. Flows of trade, people, data, and capital are very much in place and increasing all the time. Globalization is not in retreat, but certainly changing composition, in character, and so on. And today we'll be looking at one of those dimensions of changing nature of global trade. I saw a recent study by McKinsey that suggested that some 40% of global trade today is concentrated, which means nations are trading in particular categories with less than 3 or fewer suppliers, supplier countries. So very much concentrated rather than diversified. We find that even the large economies, like the United States or those in Europe and Asia, have not diversified the origins of imports, which then creates a big problem. vulnerability. So today, geopolitical risk, because of various disruptions, whether it's natural disasters or conflicts among nations, wars, the disruptions have caused geopolitical risk to reach the top of the corporate agenda. This is actually the most important topic for companies today, small and large. So all this requires a reconfiguration. As far as global supply chains are concerned, a reconfiguration, reassessment of imports. And China is where some dramatic reconfiguration may take place, actually is taking place, a bit of diversification away. So changes in global value chains are very dynamic. We see, for example, the share of goods trade has fallen. In contrast, the share of services trade has grown and is growing much faster. Sourcing also is no longer driven by labor arbitrage, no longer dominated by such considerations as low labor costs, but other considerations such as infrastructure and diversification objectives and so on. But value chains are becoming more regional and less global. That's another dimension of the changes. So today we'll be talking about global trade and change in nature of global value chains. And we have with us 7 expert folks, and I'm so delighted they're joining us today from awkward time zones for them, from around the world, and we appreciate that for some of the people staying up to join us in this conversation. So I'm going to ask everybody to turn on their videos so we can see them. And then I'm going to ask our colleague, Dr. Irina, to say a few things about, introduce briefly our guests here, our panelists. And
hello, Tamer. Thank you very much.
If you can also turn on your video, Irina, that'll be great.
The host actually stopped my video for some reason. The sign says unable to start video because the host has stopped it. If you could on your end help me with that, but okay, thank you.
Oh, there we go. There you go. We see you now.
Okay, thank you very much. And yes, indeed, what you just mentioned, it is very important and very interesting in terms of what is going on in the global economy. And decoupling is a widely known term that we hear on almost everyday basis. There are several theoretical developments that grew up from decoupling concept, of course. They are discussed by scholars in different disciplines and also practitioners. So for this particular webinar, we invited both academicians, researchers, and also people from the ground, as we typically say, to share the perspectives on what is going on in the region that we are mostly interested in and globally. Well, I would like to introduce myself and my colleagues here. My name is Irina Naumova, and I'm Professor of Management, International Business, and Chair of the Department of Management, Marketing, and Entrepreneurial Studies at the University of Hartford in Connecticut in the USA. My colleagues are Dr. Roshan Liu, who is Associate Professor of Management at the University of Tampa, Dr. Nazli Nardi, who is Professor at Purdue University, specializing in marketing research and international marketing. Dr. and the leader of our team, Tarek Hossein, who is the Assistant Professor at Thammasat Business School in Thailand, and also he's leading the PhD program. All of us, four of us, are focusing our research on different aspects of international business, cross-cultural management, and currently we're specifically interested in firms' behavior within the ASEAN region, following the decoupling between the United States and China. Our colleagues who are from the ground, our business colleagues, are Steve Adler, who actually is a director of supply chain and risk management for one of the Fortune 50 global healthcare company, and he is in control for risk management for his company. We are also welcoming a good colleague of ours and a friend, Toya Fujiwara, who is a journalist with over 3 decades of experience in the field. He is covering different areas of the business developments in the Asia. Dee Lee is a director and founder of the INA Community Development Organization, who is also involved with a great number of companies and has an insider information about investments and supply chain problems within the region. I wanted to introduce the concept itself. The purpose of the webinar is to discuss the challenges and opportunities that result from the US-China decoupling for countries and companies within the ASEAN region. In the broader sense, it is affecting not only US and China, but the world economy as a whole, and specifically that region. In the literature, decoupling initiated the discussion on sort of deglobalization, or maybe even slowing down the process of globalization. This is related to the fragmentation of global economy, creating internal barriers between countries, slowing down international trade and goods and capital transfers. Political tensions, such as the tension between the West and Russia, the Red Sea rerouting that is resulted from the war between Israel and Gaza's Hamas, the pandemic, and so on and so forth, they increase and actually damage internationally accepted practices and institutions, as well as product delivery channels. This makes researchers and practitioners believe the globalization is being disrupted. Clearly, the pace of globalization can be different. It is not the same all the time, and its achievements can be partially destroyed, but in a long run, the challenges of decoupling lead to future developments of other networks in surrounding regions and restructuring of the global economy, which will later result in a better and hopefully more balanced connections between suppliers and buyers, increased operations, and economic growth in many regions. With the limited competition on a market, when relationship between a buyer and a supplier tend to feel the pressure of a bargaining power from counterparts, which is actually the Porter's 5 forces model concept. A company's strategy is to avoid such relationship and build network with maybe smaller buyers or suppliers and neutralize the bargaining power threat from a huge partner. Thus, strategy-wise, the conflict between two powerful companies with a buyer-supplier relationship will temporarily develop a crisis-like situation, but in the long run, they will certainly create healthier networks and improve their market positions. This is exactly what we are observing on a global economy scale currently.
That's a great, Irina, that's a great overview, and thank you for that background. Basically, we're talking about a mega trend, right? I mean, the global
Absolutely.
economy, especially the value chains and supply chains, are in flux and have implications for individual nations, trading partners, as well as certainly for companies. So let me, in the interest of time, let me turn to our colleague, Dr. Nazli Nardi. Uh, Nazli, in light of this decoupling that Irina talked about, what are the most significant economic challenges facing global markets? Well,
Thank
how
you.
do you view things?
Thank you, Tamir. It is important to recognize that the impact of the decoupling and the challenges that it poses will vary significantly across the regions. Some regions will benefit with a stride as new opportunities are open up for them. For instance, South Korea is making new FDI agreements with the Dominican Republic, while others are going to see more challenges. And also the variability of these challenges will vary across the industry. But there are four significant challenges that we can identify. Number one, we have supply chain disruptions. The US-China decoupling has led to disruptions in global supply chains. For instance, the technology sector has been impacted with restrictions to export on semiconductors and electronic components. The decoupling has also led to the breakdown of integrated supply networks that took decades to build, such as in the case of automobile industry, which relies on complex global supply chains. And the disruption has resulted in shortages of critical parts. Number two, we could include trade uncertainty. The uncertainty in the US-China trade relations have far-reaching effects on businesses worldwide. Companies rely on stable trade environments so they can make investment decisions, plan production, and manage their international operations. And the ongoing trade tensions and the unpredictability between these two superpowers have led for companies not able to commit to large-scale projects or long-term expansion. Then there's also the threat of economic slowdown. If both the US and China experience a slower economic growth, this can lead to reduced global demand of goods and services, affecting export-dependent economies. And a reduced investment between the US and China can also affect emerging markets. Many of the developing countries rely on the FDI that they receive from these two countries, such as the Caribbean and Latin America, which have received substantial FDI from them. And a slowdown in FDI can hinder these countries' economic development. And finally, which is something that you mentioned, geopolitical tensions. The geopolitical tensions resulting from the US-China decoupling have become a prominent concern, not only for the governments, but also for companies. One notable example is the South China Sea conflict, which the rivalry between the US and China has exacerbated the territorial disputes among multiple countries in the region. And this affects not only the stability in the region, but also it affects globally the business implication because there are critical sea routes that pass through that area. Outside of the region, if we take a look at South America, for example, and Latin America, where for the past decade, China has brought in an influx of FDI, these countries that have received the FDI are now in a position where they have to consider, do I stay with my geographically close partner who I have a long history with, or do I risk alienating the US, that partner, because China has been a more lenient partner with more influx and less string attached with their FDI. So as we will see later in the conversation from some of the presenters, although there are challenges, there are also significant opportunities for adaptation, and innovation that companies can take advantage to face these challenges.
Yeah, excellent. Nazla, thank you so much. Definitely, as you say, these challenges will beg companies, compel companies to act and act strategically and opportunistically. And certainly these disruptions that we talked about affect different industries differently. So I'd like to turn to Stephen Adler, who represents one of our practitioner speakers, right? Stephen, you've been in the U.S. healthcare supply business, and we have a very interesting title, Director of Supply Chain Risk Management, which I'm sure didn't exist a few years ago, right? And now is probably one of the most important functions in any company engaged in global trade. But I mean, so in your industry, how are these disruptions reflecting and changing your industry? What kind of challenges and what have been the responses to those challenges?
Yeah, thanks for that warm welcome, and thanks for inviting me to the conversation. Hopefully you can hear me okay. And also my other important job is I'm also an adjunct at the Barney School of Business at the University of Harvard with Arena. So thank you for allowing me to come here. You're absolutely right. Third-party risk, supply chain risk definitely is at the forefront, particularly with corporations today. I just want to make a point. My comments, my observations are really with the broader healthcare industry as I work with colleagues across various companies. Kind of three themes here that I'd like to talk about is really around protectionism, around the redistribution of talent that we're seeing with some of the challenges of de-risking or decoupling within China, as well as kind of a heightened awareness around cyber and cybersecurity. So what we've seen, certainly from a protectionism perspective, is that obviously with semiconductors, as Dr. Nardi had pointed out, we're also seeing a heightened awareness around increased laws and enforcement over in China around their policies and anti-U.S. sentiment. So that's still increasing and still, creating some barriers within China. China still continues to be a big partner in the pharma space. So if you think about supply chain, breaking it out into product and services, from a product perspective, China still continues to be a key player within the pharma space. But likewise, India plays a big role in that as well. So protectionism is really one key theme there. The other thing to think about within protectionism is also the continued alignment with China, with Russia and North Korea as well. So that clearly has come to the forefront that we've seen with a lot of the sourcing arrangements in the Ukraine area, and certainly that's created some rerouting of services to other areas in that region or out of that region. We've also seen an increase in OFAC and FCPA monitoring and violations with respect to those suppliers that may be doing business directly with our adversaries or indirectly. So there seems to be certainly some more enforcement monitoring in that respect. From a geotension standpoint, what we're seeing is really a redistribution of talent. We're seeing those in the broader Southeast Asia area. Certainly within Malaysia, the Philippines certainly has historically been a stronghold, or not a stronghold, but a great opportunity for us in terms of skill sets, and as well as obviously in India. So, but we're also expanding out into across the industry in other Southeast Asia countries and exploring based on the skill sets that are available out there as well. Getting to one of the things that certainly we are responding to as an industry is when you take a look at China, they have an aging population. They have a lower birth rate since dropping the one-child mandate in 2016. And when you take a look at, they're going to be experiencing approximately a 30 million job shortage or labor shortage of approximately 48% of a demand shortage come around 2025. Likewise, they're experiencing currently the deng peng or the laying flat syndrome with a high unemployment rate of Gen Z from 16 to 24, which are really kind of challenging their overall social ambitions or personal ambitions. They're challenging societal expectations, and so there's certainly a challenge within China to develop successionary planning with that aging population, particularly with Gen Z. That they're currently at a 15% unemployment rate. So again, from a healthcare perspective, on the service side, we are, from what we're seeing across the board, is we're seeing opportunities in other Southeast Asian markets with where those skill sets or capabilities are. So there's definitely an opportunity there from a talent redistribution. The last thing, which continues to be an ongoing challenge, is really around the cyber and data protection area. So, we are hypersensitive, particularly being in a highly regulated industry, to the exfiltration of protected information and aggression, particularly with nation state attacks, as well as potential compromises to our U.S. intellectual property. So heightened awareness around that. So those are really kind of the three themes: continued protectionism, the talent redistribution, and some of the talent challenges that we're responding to. And then really the third thing is continued keeping strong defenses and strong intelligence around our cyber awareness and data protection. So hopefully that all resonates with you, and
That is a wonderful set of insights, Stephen. Really, thank you so much. I'm just trying to imagine your daily work, Stephen. You're kind of looking at short-term trends, long-term trends, and constantly taking into consideration these, skill sets you talked about, tensions you talked about, company needs, and the need to constantly jockey around, reconfigure. And so your job must be very, very interesting. And thank you for sharing your insights at the University of Hartford students as well. I'm sure they are really enjoying you. I'm going to ask our colleague Dee Lee to join us as well. Dee, you are the innovators. You are the founder and director of a very interesting civil society organization called Community Development Organization, where the guiding slogan is social good beyond innovation. And you built an amazing network over 9 countries and dealing with such issues as protecting worker rights, enhancing well-being, and so on. And right now, I think you are in China. So how do things look from your end? How does this decoupling that we keep talking about, affecting Asian businesses and compelling them to adapt to the new economic landscape created by these disruptions and tensions?
Thanks, Professor. Thank you so much for, of course, Dr. Director, inviting me for such wonderful and precious opportunity to talk about the China-US decoupling relationship. So without further ado, just let me introduce myself a little bit. My name is Dee Lee, Director of InnoAsia. My day job is a chief executive running a nonprofit focusing on workplace injustice, mainly on supply chain, helping you guys to build sneakers, toys on daily basis. So we work with 65 international buyers and around 3,000 factories in Asia, mainly in China as well. So also I'm one of the Asian Society Fellow and a columnist for the journals and paper in China. As possibly, I'm the only Chinese in mainland for this seminar. I can't depict the scary left-wing and the joyful right-wing vibes in China in 5 minutes, because it sounds crazy. People are having totally different opinion about the decoupling. But I may share my understanding and what I learned since the decoupling beyond the data, especially what has been done to ASEAN economy. To be honest, I'm now in Thailand, and I'm setting up my my own organization here in Bangkok as well. So before dive into the other conversation, I just wanted to, to initiate some of the thinking about some of the terms. One is China. Are we talking about the Chinese Communist Party or Chinese government, or maybe the mainland China in territory concept? When we talk about decoupling, are we talking about the diplomatic relationship, economy relationship, or trading relationship, or some other different relationship? So without further ado, there are three M I would like the participant to focus, to think about what are the opportunities for ASEAN countries during the decoupling. So one thing is the money. I'm sorry, it's a little bit different. It's totally reverse, but this is all about the money. So basically, when we talk about the money, I talked to 18 different of my high income net worth friend who has different thinking about their money. So 15 of them are thinking about moving all of the, or maybe part of the family assets to ASEAN country. The number one factory, I asked 15 of them, is Indonesia. Second one will be Thailand. The third one is different, there's no different. Every country is like one or two different votes. But Indonesia and Thailand are top two choices for where their money go in ASEAN. The second thing is about the manufacturing. Nowadays, there are way too many international buyers are so scared. If this decoupling keep going on, how are they going to sustain their product making? So I was asked, I was in the seminar. There's one of the top Fortune 500 company asked another supplier to say, if the war really breaks out between China and Taiwan, how are you going to sustain my PC components coming into my office next year? No one can really answer this question, because when we talk about decoupling, when we talk about the extreme level of relationship deterioration, and this is something that you are not going to expect. So the manufacturing number are the stuff that we need to focus. The third M, so there are money, one M. The first M, the second M is manufacturing. The third M is muted voices. Yes, we can easily go to talk to different, take a look at different numbers to understand are the economy is doing good or doing bad. But just come back to the ground to try to talk to the muted voices. What are the businesses are thinking? What are the normal people in the family, for the family hosts thinking? What are the young people are thinking about the decoupling? So when we talk about the three different business opportunity, the first thing I would say is the new manufacturing. I'm not talking about the toy making, clothing making, apparel. Come and take a look at the EV battery, or maybe some other the manufacturing for the new economy as well. So the second opportunity would be actually the family fund foundation and the registration itself in the ASEAN. There is just enormous number of people keep asking me, how am I going to set up a family funding in ASEAN country? It turns out to be, Singapore is the only choice. But somehow they not thinking about Singapore for the first choice. Maybe they're thinking about coming to Malaysia, coming to Thailand for a safer haven for their money. So last but not least, it can be a little bit trendy, can be a little bit tricky. It would be crypto. Crypto business is still banned in China, and I'm not saying ASEAN country is the new heaven for crypto business, but the actually what I learned about my community working in the crypto business, 1/3 of them have been setting up their company and business here in ASEAN countries. So yeah, that would be my 3M as the criteria to think about, to look into the business data outside of the data. So I also talk about 3 different opportunities, business opportunity during the decoupling between US and China for ASEAN countries. So yeah, last but not least, China has 99 problems. Decoupling is one of them. I believe my folks who are the true patriots and work diligently to make a difference inside or outside of China will cruise the up and downs during a crazy wavy time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very interesting insights, Dee. Really appreciate it. If we have a chance, I'd like to hear more about the organization and the services that you provide, especially for the workers in various innovative sectors. But let me ask our colleague Tariq Hussain from Thammasat University. Tariq, you're sitting now in Bangkok, Thailand, and Thailand has always been a target
gateway
for setting up for Western companies setting up production facilities and others. But have you seen any trends? I mean, are there what is it? What is the current situation, and how does Thailand fit into this global reconfiguration of value chains?
So what I think I would agree with the whole discussion, especially what you mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, that the full-fledged of decoupling, I think it's nearly impossible because our world is more connected. So somehow the COVID proved that we are a very connected world, right? So something happened in one part of the world and it's got quickly, other part of the world. So with that circumstance, it's quite impossible to think that a full-fledged of decoupling. But what we can see that the decoupling is actually happening, especially if you look on the semiconductor or if you look on the similar type of medical equipment kind of industry, decoupling already started, not only with the American company that had the investment in China, but also the company, those are in China. Chinese company, as Dee mentioned, that some of them are actually trying to look for the opportunity in the other part of the world. So me and my colleague, Irina, Roshan, and Nazli, we try to look at research. We try to see what could happen if this kind of decoupling continue for some more year. So what we take the data from the United Nations and also the content analysis, we look on the country like African countries. We look on the countries like South America. We look also as a big player, India, and we look all ASEAN countries together. So our data indicate that all the countries, if you look on the 20 or 22 years data, you can see that all of the region is actually progressing that trade with China and also with the USA over the last 20 year plus. But what comes to us very interestingly is that the ASEAN countries are doing quite different. I mean, they are extremely good in terms of the trade. They are all together, if you look on the just one data, the American companies all together, their trade on 2000, it was like around 40 billion US dollar. And today they have made a lot of progress and it's now around 440 billion dollar. But with China, the ASEAN countries made sometime like at the beginning of 2000, less than 40 billion. And today it's $661 billion, 2021, right? So what's happening is that many companies are finding the ASEAN as a great opportunity. And of course, Thailand, Vietnam, they are the leading of this kind of decoupling. And we then also try to look using the social contract theory, what's going on actually in the reality and the theory. What does it tell us? And we found that some of the countries, although they are very potential, like the India, because of their social problem, like the religious violence, that's not a good choice for the investor. If you look on the Africa, also very promising because of its natural resources, but they are also having conflict and then all this issue. South American countries also not connected very well. But if you look on the ASEAN part of the world, they are highly connected. So they are not one country, they are 10 countries and they are very well connected. And not only the ASEAN network, that there is also network that you might know that they call it RCEP, which include the 6 other countries like China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, all these big, Korea also there. Yeah? 6 top nation along with the ASEAN. There is also, TAF with the America and the ASEAN countries. What I found, or what we found over the time, that the countries, those who are actually being extremely good, taking as an opportunity, they are the one who is making the collaboration, not the decoupling. So when we talked with the companies, I talked with many of the colleagues, they said, look, we have a great business with China. We have also great business with USA. We want to maintain. So the companies feel very uncomfortable when they were asked to choose. Would you like to go for American block or would you like to go for the Chinese block? They don't like it. They rather want to continue with the both part of the world. And that's what I can see in the ASEAN country, including Thailand. And Thailand these days having a lot of investment in terms of the EV and so many other things that we can see in the real field. I think that's all my part. If there's any other question, I can come up later on.
Thank you. Thank you, Tarek, for those insights, and hopefully we'll come back to you as well. And I certainly have a lot of questions, and looking at the chat, we have some other questions too. But this panel is so comprehensive, so complete, so interesting in the sense that we have a distinguished journalist, business journalist with us. And I'm going to ask Toyoaki Fujiwara to share some insights from his unique perspective. Toyo, you worked all over ASEAN. In many of these countries, and you are based right now, I understand, in Bangkok, and following business certainly in the entire region. How do you see, looking at the broader picture, what are the key global challenges and prospects emerging from these, the phenomenon of decoupling and reconfiguring supply chains?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm from Nikkei, which is essentially a Tokyo-based business media.
Toyo, if you can speak closer to the microphone.
Yeah, okay. I hope sounds okay. Yeah. And yeah, I think decoupling is a very good topic to discuss now at a time when the ASEAN region embraces the auspicious Chinese New Year, and I'm based in Bangkok, and we are a team of reporters on the ground in ASEAN, and I'm leading the entire team here. And because of our proximity to China, we are placed at the forefront of experiencing the effects of decoupling. And first, we have to remember this is all about the U.S. and China's tech tension, tech wars, and that is a reason why we've been extensively following the developments in the chip industry, and to understand the trajectory down the road regarding the China and the U.S. tech wars. We are now keen to focus on the electric vehicles, which kind of embody the China's chip ambitions down the road. And as you know, modern electric vehicles and the future autonomous vehicles, they heavily rely on chips and software. And the expansion of the Chinese EVs is particularly notable here in Southeast Asia. Companies like BYD, Neta, Great Wall Motors are dominating the EV sales in Thailand, one of the ASEAN's leading auto markets. According to the local monthly data, battery electric vehicles accounted for over 25% of the entire new car registrations, including the ICEs, in December, which is quite phenomenal. And Chinese brands captured a whopping 80% of the market share when it comes to the electric vehicles in 2023, sidelining the established US, European, and Japanese auto brands. And we have to understand, particularly this year, 2024, is going to mark the real beginning of the Chinese EVs overseas expansion. And in January, one of the Chinese major brands, Great Wall Motors, just initiated their local production here in Thailand. And other peers, including BYD, SAIC, are going to follow suit this year. And many view these moves as the Chinese attempts to establish Thailand as an export hub, to boost their presence. And during the recent conversation with one of the Great Wall Motor executives, he told me that he is concerned about the slowing Chinese economy, and he's also aware of feeling the heat of the possible future restrictions from the US or European authorities. And the Chinese brand's expansion spree appears to be on a collision course with the US and its allies down the road, as they perceive China's chip ambitions behind the wheel. And while China's famous Made in China 2025 goals for chip sufficiency faced setbacks due to the entity list expansions, China aims to rebound by leveraging its EV success. And under the banner of building an automobile powerhouse, we believe Beijing is seeking to reduce its reliance on imported technology and chips. And to be sure, commercially available EVs today, they utilize chips not subject to the US-led export restrictions. However, the continued expansion of the Chinese brands down the road could alter this landscape. And in fact, China aims to domestically produce advanced automotive chips, including the so-called AI semiconductors. They are crucial, elements for the future autonomous driving. And leveraging the world's largest EV market at home, China can utilize its free access to its domestic market or critical mass to enhance their technological prowess. And the Chinese government aims to establish technical standards for the key automotive chips by 2025. And this initiative could potentially lead to more divergent technical specifications or perhaps fragmented supply chains for EVs. And such a scenario could result in increased EV prices or slower global adoption, and it could even alter the course of the global attempts to achieve the targets to mitigate climate change. I think I have to stop now. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Toyaki. I mean, certainly, as you illustrated here for us, the discussion of these dynamic changes in global value chains becomes much more interesting in the context of specific industries and product categories, such as chips and semiconductors, and the role of various parties, and certainly the influence of political influences, political conflicts, and so on. I'm going to ask our colleague Ruxin Lu from University of Tampa to kind of follow in that direction. I mean, Ruxin, certainly these challenges are there, but the companies are not sitting idle, are they? I mean, they're responding in reactive and proactive ways. Maybe you can give us an overview of what you see out there in terms of company reactions to these dynamic changes.
Thank you so much, Professor Tamir. And so this is an ongoing research project of us four professors on this panel. So we had the honor and the privilege to invite those industry speakers today. And we had a pre-session. So I kind of wrapping up everybody's points here. I can offer some of our suggestions for companies who are interested in investing in this area. So certainly the decoupling between the United States and China poses both challenges, opportunities, as we have already discussed so far. And to successfully navigate it through these turbulent times, international business need to have a resilience and strategic foresight, right? So with the competition between the US and China, businesses are encouraged to diversify their supply chain away from an over-reliance on China as the main manufacturing powerhouse. And so in other words, we are talking about diversification strategy, right? So the Southeast Asian region is a great place for companies that are interested in diversifying both the markets and the production, right? So ASEAN countries have seen a significant increase in international trade, as Tarek just mentioned. By expanding their network within this region, companies can reduce risk and increase their resilience. To reap the benefit of diversification in this region, companies can be better prepared by focusing on the following three tactics. The first one, I'll suggest companies keep a close watch on ongoing political tensions, as some of the presenters here already mentioned. So according to the latest survey conducted by ASEAN, in 2023, geopolitical tensions continue to be one of the top three concerns following economic uncertainty and climate crisis. One of the survey questions was about each ASEAN nation's stand on the US-China decoupling issues. And participants were asked if ASEAN had to choose between the two major powers, the US or China. 2/3 of the respondents answered that they would be choosing US. And the percentage of respondents choosing China has dropped from 43% in 2022 to 38.9% in 2023. However, it should be noted that respondents from Brunei, Malaysia, and Indonesia favored China over the US. Taken together, international companies operating in this region need to carefully evaluate the bilateral relationship among ASEAN nations, in addition to these conflicts among the superpowers. And the second tactic is about effectively managing geopolitical risk. And companies should be agile and proactive in seeking the opportunities for friendshoring. As Steve just mentioned, the US healthcare has been acquiring talents from Malaysia and the Philippines. And this means that Asian companies should focus on strengthening regional ties and building more integrated and resilient supply chains within the region. This approach not only helps to mitigate the risk associated with geopolitical tensions, but also promotes regional economic stability and growth. For example, the government in Taiwan has been guiding companies to invest in Asian countries since the 1990s. Acer, as a Taiwanese computer company, has been successful in investing in the biotechnology industry, and their Battery CDR is a diagnostic software for diabetic retinopathy, and they recently just signed an MOU for 2 public hospitals in Thailand to utilize this technology. And Wistron is another company that spun off from Acer. And the company just announced that the additional capital injection of 24.5 million in an electronics factory in Vietnam. So these are just a couple of the examples to show how Taiwanese firms are accustomed to continue the threat of this geopolitical tension from China. And some of the Taiwanese firms were able to successfully develop the regional ties and to manage the risk and gradually diversify both the end markets and the production. And the third tactic is about the importance of innovation. Creating innovation in products, services, and processes can help open new markets and provide a competitive edge, right? As Dee just shared with us those important insights. As mentioned by Toyo also, Japanese automobile manufacturers have faced a very steep market competition from emerging Chinese automobile manufacturers. To successfully navigate the US-China decoupling, ASEAN companies should also focus on innovation to find new ways of applying their existing organizational capabilities or upgrading their current capabilities. For instance, some Taiwanese companies have found it easier to relocate their factories out of China when there is a high degree of automation. So more and more companies also seeking ways to invest in AI. So the companies can improve communication with suppliers as well as provide customized products. So in conclusion, the US-China decoupling definitely presents a complex set of challenges. By now, a lot of companies understand a sudden and a complete disconnection from China is very unlikely. Just to echo Professor Tamina's opening remark in terms of the recent McKinsey report, up till 2023, trade between geopolitically distant economies still accounts for nearly 20% of global goods trade. Particularly in the electronics industry, some companies find it hard to contract with alternative suppliers in geopolitically more aligned nations. Right, so Dee also mentioned how difficult it can be for the companies to relocate their factory out of China due to capital and immigration constraints. So by researching geographic the risk in the value chain, cultivating the regional partnership, and innovating, I believe Asian firms can turn those challenges into growth opportunities. Right. So the paper we co-author on this topic, really trying to discover this underlying trade pattern in terms of paving an inclusive global economic growth. So I believe in times of crisis, there are great opportunities.
Thank you so much, Rushin. Thank you so much. Great illustrations and findings of your research. Time is always short in these conversations. We wish we had more time, but we'll take a few minutes, maybe respond to some of our participants' questions. And I think there's one from Jorge Fernandez. Tarek, you wanted to respond to that. Jorge is asking, what is the role of Japan in our conversation? If you can respond to that question, please.
Yeah, I think that countries like Japan or India, they have a great opportunities too. All right, because in terms of the technology, if you think about the Japanese position, it could be better off in coming days, because of the semiconductor or all these things. We can see that the Japan or the Korea or the Taiwan can get a better advantage. Again, the tech company that Apple is investing in India, so we can see these kind of things happen in coming days more and more.
Yeah, so on that topic, Jorge Riveras also mentions Apple and iPhone tapping India for manufacturing, to some extent diversifying from China. And what would you like to say on that? Is this going to be a trend?
If chances are given, I may spend probably 2 or 3 hours to talk about this, but I'm going to answer as short as possible. We work with Apple suppliers for many years. We work with them to bring up the workers' right to another level. This has been joyful experience, and to my understand that Apple would not leave China's supply chain in terms of making Apple phone, iPhone or iWatch, because there are 3 things that India at the moment, or maybe in the coming 5 years, cannot compare with, according to the internal discussion in Apple. One is the logistics. Second is the stability of the social movement. There are lots of saying, you can go back and take a look at what kind of social movement you can think about for China in comparing to India. And the third thing is the workers, let's say, entitlement are very stable in terms of making progress towards their benefits. So we just coming back from an Apple factory in Hunan province. They are not thinking about closing down the branches, and possibly 85% of the Apple Watch glasses are made by this factory, but they're thinking about building another factory in Vietnam. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe you can say Apple is moving the supply chain outside of China, but they're not leaving China's supply chain.
Thank you for your reminder, Nazlı. So decoupling versus coupling, it's straightforward, but I'm sure you have a good explanation of that. Concentration versus diversification. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Nazlı.
So to answer Darlene's question in very brief words, so coupling will refer to close economic interdependence between 2 or more countries. Think about an easy flow of goods and services, trade agreements, joint ventures, and an extensive integrated supply chain. And then decoupling would be on the opposite end, where you have, on the other hand, a process where those connections are being limited, either by the restrictions in trade or other political restrictions, or they are being severed. But as we have seen in the conversation, it is unlikely that we would go all the way to the end of not having that, but we would see that depending on the regions and the country, it would fall somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm. And certainly it's going to vary by industry and by company and how diversified they wish to be. Stephen, you talked about in your comments the role of intellectual property, certainly very important for your industry, healthcare products, supplies. So there's a question from a participant, how important is IP law, IP protection, obviously, and certainly enforcement, right? Are big issues, but I'm sure you have some comments on that.
Yeah, great question, by the way. So when you take a look at supply chain, if you're kind of breaking it out between product and services, so on the service side, it's not as much of a risk. We're finding with our BPO relationships and ITO relationships involving decoupling or de-risking, again, across the industry, we're really focused on what are those partnerships where there is less adverse risk with the service side of the house, with Indonesia, with the Philippines, with India. Certainly, we're even looking at a lot of companies are looking at towards Africa as well, South Africa specifically. On the product side, it's a little bit different. So if you're taking a look at pharma formularies, if you're taking a look at kind of the DNA of key products that are important to us, there is some potential risk to economic security with respect to protecting our crown jewels. So from a product perspective, I think there certainly is ongoing risk and monitoring of intellectual protection. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stephen.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
If I may add to that point, it is interesting what is going on right now on the market, and there are some signs that if it were a little bit different before, when the well-developed nations were a little bit concerned about the international property, intellectual property rights and the preservance of the rights. Currently, with China looking to spread its influence over the ASEAN countries, China is very concerned about the very same. So it is a different side of already existing process when international institutions were trying to develop the roots for international relationship and preservance of intellectual property rights. So China is now joining the process, but from other angle. It is quite interesting and different from what we saw before.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting, Irina, indeed. So we're going to respect our participants, what we promised to our participants. We're going to try to bring this interesting discussion to a conclusion. As you can see, panelists, there's a lot of appreciation from the participants, lots of good feedback there. And just a reminder, this recording will be available on YouTube and on our own channel, the GSU-CIBER website. But before I conclude, I will ask if any of our speakers would like to make some final words of wisdom. Please go ahead. Otherwise, I'd like to thank you, especially those who joined us from awkward time zones and stayed up very late. I know half of our panelists fall into that category. Really appreciate this conversation and appreciate the wisdom and experience that you have shared. With that, any final comments, concluding words?
Yeah, if you give me a chance, I would say that the world is getting kind of a crazy time. So if wherever you are, if you've got any chance to collaborate people, to bring people together, do that one. That's your job. So with that one, you can actually see the society is getting close to one another. And if we come one another, we know we are human beings, we can stay together. We don't need the decoupling.
Keep the communication going, open dialogue. Right, very good, very good. Toyo?
Yeah, can I just add one thing? What I see in Southeast Asia is, when it comes to the, electric vehicles, I just offer the snapshot of the market. Chinese brands are dominating the market, but they South Asian consumers also have a choice. They can go for Tesla, they can go for other European brands as well, and I think they are all embracing this wide range of choice. And choosing between the superpowers, the U.S. and China. That is the last thing Asian consumers would wish to happen. So there was an interesting question regarding the role of Japan. And as a Japanese, I'd like to just mention something on that. Well, Japan has definitely a role to play. It's about encouraging trade and global collaboration. But to do that, Japanese economy has to remain relevant. That is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Irina, final words?
Yes, I wanted to thank all the participants and especially our host, Georgia State University, and Tamir. Many thanks to you and your entire team for great, absolutely great hosting opportunity for all of us. Thank you, and please continue doing the same.
We appreciate everything you said, and we appreciate the feedback, Irina. Certainly, it's been a pleasure to have all of you engage in this conversation, engage with our audience, and we'd love to have you all back on another topic, on another webinar. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day, evening, or morning, and we appreciate it. Take care.